get a chance, hit that subscribe button as hard as you possibly can. I need more subscribers. So, subscribe. Going to start off today's podcast with a little note. Nobody should be allowed in public wearing pajama pants. You're not allowed to leave your house in them. You shouldn't even leave your bedroom in them. You shouldn't even own a pair. But if you decide you want to sleep in pants, once you step out of your bedroom, they should be off. Not in public. I see them everywhere. It's a travesty. That's it. What's your exact title? I went in your LinkedIn this morning to get your exact title. Are you Director of National Accounts and Provider of National HVAC Products and Solutions?
Director of National Accounts is the title, yeah.
Well, I'm going to use the whole thing. Okay.
They say for LinkedIn, again, to get attention, you put more of what you do than the title.
Well,
so LinkedIn has a different thing.
No, you got my attention. Okay, LinkedIn got my attention. Sure, I searched for you, but, whatever. Okay, so, great show today. We're here with Brad Medchill. I'm sure a bunch of you are big fans of his. You might know him as a Iowa Hawkeye wrestler, or most people know him as the Director of National Accounts of Provider of National HVAC Products and Solutions for Lennox HVAC Systems. Did I nail that?
That's it. I mean, you have NBA stars, you have TikTok stars, you have male models, and then you have HVAC directors.
Which is what we want. Okay, I'm a realtor, so I don't sound very cool either. I mean, how often? I was thinking about this last night. I was laying in bed. I couldn't go to sleep. I was like, how often do I get to interview the Director of National Accounts and Provider of National HVAC? Never.
Never. Yeah. There's not many of them out there.
What a show. We're going to talk about Freon, climate, how many units you need. No. So we'll discuss mostly your, not mostly, but your Iowa background, your wrestling background, your moving around jobs. And I wanted to start it off with, are you still day trading?
I had to give that up, unfortunately.
Okay. Yep. Hard to hear. That hurts for you.
So you want to get straight into that?
Yes. So for everyone listening in at home, Brad and I were living together in separate rooms. Brad and I were living together in Houston, Texas, and we were probably, I think I was 24 and Brad was 23, and we're going to figure out how he got the itch. I think he wanted to get rich real quick. So he used all of his $20,000 to get into day trading, and then about 4 weeks later, him and I's net worth was even at about $800.
No.
And I believe he stopped day trading shortly thereafter. But he did have 3 computer screens, and he would lock himself in his bedroom for about 3 straight hours, and lost a lot of money. So, Brad, walk us through day trading. How'd that all pan out?
Young men have to have their dreams, and so
For sure.
So I actually didn't lose any money in day trading. I just didn't make any money in day trading.
How I remember it.
I know. So you might not remember it. So I took a job in Dallas intentionally to run a second and third shift operation so that I could day trade.
Oh.
And so I moved to Dallas, and I tell DJ, who I was living with at the time, and I go, dude, I'll be back in 6 months. I just got to get this day trading thing figured out, and I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
And however many years, 14 years later, I'm still in Dallas. But
And no longer day trading?
I did that for 6 months. I got up, started trading when the markets opened, traded about halfway through the day, then went to work, came home, rinse and repeat. Did it for about 6 months before I'm just like, F this. The account went like this, like this.
Didn't you go down? Weren't you down big at one point?
I had big lost days, but I had big win days, and so it kind of offset. I probably at the end of the day probably lost $500 total, but
truth comes
out. I was trying to take 20 grand and be able to make a living off of it.
Yeah,
and that didn't.
The highs and the lows there.
Yeah, biggest day I had losing was probably $5,000 in a day losing, but biggest day gain was probably 4.
And that was like right after the housing crash, so like the market was wild.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And now he's into crypto, folks. We'll get into that in a little bit. But after the day trading, I had this in my mind, so I'm wrong. I thought you lost like everything, and you're like, this is a horrible
No, I have lost everything before. So in '08, I took everything I had and put it into some commodity fund,
Okay.
a managed fund. I didn't manage it and then '08's when the commodities market just took a dive, and that was leveraged. And so it liquidated. Basically, it was probably 15 grand at the time. What big then for me as, young 20s, but, you know,
Yeah.
wasn't.
Oh, I mean, anything in the thousands when you're in 24 is just like monumental. Didn't you flip a house and lose money too? That was impressive.
Yeah, yeah, believe it or not. No,
Hmm.
I didn't lose money on that either, but I didn't make anything on it, you know.
Yeah, someone called that losing.
Yeah.
But,
The
the
time.
power of positive thinking here, you
That's
gained
right.
experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
And
did flip two houses after that for profit, which finally it was finally making sense.
that's not fun to talk about. I like beating you down, Brad, so then we can build you up later. But
Yeah, yeah.
everybody can tell by your hair and your outfit you're successful. So we like to talk about your years earlier when you were, maybe a failure. And
The
then,
beatings keep coming, no matter
correct.
what.
I mean, you got a nice little industrial mount behind you with shelves and white brick. The guy's doing well. Look at that haircut. Okay.
It's all
That's six,
real.
that's 6 figures right there.
It's some white is starting to come in, which I don't like, but
It's
it's real.
impressive. And your dad's got a haircut like me. So that's even more
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got my mom's side hair, luckily.
Man, I got my dad's. Okay, so I want to talk about wrestling a little bit. Iowa wrestling, and it's no longer like this. We'll talk about that too. But Iowa wrestling from, and correct me when I'm wrong, because I'm probably wrong, like 1985 to like 2010 was Alabama football for wrestling. This guy makes me want to wrestle. It was winning or competing for a national championship, whatever year it started, all of those years, until about when did Penn State become the big name?
Yeah, probably 2010.
Okay, and when would you
2010.
say Iowa started like their run?
Yeah, mid 80s.
Okay,
Mid 80s,
nailed it.
right around there. So, yeah, started with who's considered a living legend now, Dan Gable, was a multi-time national champ, Olympic champ.
It's
He
mentally
went to
stable.
Iowa as a coach and just took it to new heights.
And when did Gable stop? When was his last year coaching?
2000 or 1999 maybe.
And then you were there from what? '03 to '07? Is that right?
'03 to '07. Gable came back to be an assistant coach in '06, '07 season because we brought back a different coach. Tom Brands became the head coach, and they brought Gable back as kind of a head assistant just to bring some fire back to the.
Who was the coach between '00 or '99 and '06?
Jim Zaleski was his name.
Yeah, forgettable guy. It already sounds like he should get out of there. But he did
Again,
recruit you, so he got a.
multiple time national champ.
I take that back.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lovely character.
But Tom Brands, so Gable and Tom Brands are the guys that you had on posters on your wall if you were a young wrestler coming up in the sport. They were
I
both
wasn't even a
Olympic
wrestler, and I
champions.
had them both on my wall.
Yeah, I bet you did.
I mean, you just walked in, and it was Gable, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I used to wrestle for fun. Used to get in there. Okay, so what age did
Do you still
start
wrestle for
wrestling?
fun?
I do, yeah, mostly on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a local Y. We just
How's
get
the
in
jaw?
there. Oh, we're going to talk about that. I have that on the notes. So I don't want to give anyone too sneak peek, but I wrestled this guy on the other end here with the white brick, and jaw. There's still some effects. That was about 15 years ago.
I still
And-
feel bad about that.
Oh, I want. We'll go in that in a second. What age did you get started, and how did you get started? And why I'm asking how is I'm going to say, if you grab 100 kids that walk into a supermarket, only one's probably ever wrestled in his life or going to wrestle. So it's a little bit more unique. Everybody
True.
plays little league. Everybody
Yeah.
plays like maybe flag football or basketball. How did you get into wrestling, and what age did you start?
Yeah, it depends where you live and where you're from also, but I started when I was 10 or 11.
Oh, it's that late? I thought maybe like when you were 5 or something.
No, I think my parents had 4 kids. I'm one of 4, number 2 in line, but I think they just weren't ready for it yet. It's a sport that you have to be ready when you start. My dad wrestled through college as well. He was a wrestler at Mankato State,
Okay, well there you go.
and just kind of was in the blood. My uncle did as well, but they made me wait until I was begging them to start.
Okay, so you were about 10 or 11, got into it. When did you know you were good? I'm better than all these other kids that I'm wrestling against.
Well, let's talk about that as well with your career because there's levels to
Oh,
everything, you know.
like an
And
onion.
so, yeah, so I felt like I was good in my town, you know, right away, probably within the first year because you go to tournaments every weekend through wrestling season. There were basically every Sunday in the state of Illinois. And you would just go, and if you won, you knew that you did pretty well that day.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Brad lived in Illinois, in Bartlett for a little while, but then you moved to Houston.
Yep,
So when did you move? Because wrestling's pretty big in Illinois. It's probably not as big in Texas.
right, right.
When did you move? How old were you?
I was going into high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew, like we said, you started wrestling guys, and you're like, I'm just better than everybody, kind of. But like,
I knew I was okay. I knew I
Yeah.
was okay. Every year my record got a little bit better. Yeah, in 7th grade I took 3rd in the state of Illinois. 8th grade I took 2nd in the state of Illinois, and then moved to Texas.
there you go. What was your gift as a wrestler? Were you quick? Were you strong? Were you a little bit of both? Was there a move that was unbeatable? Like if you're an edge rusher in football and your swim move is just incredible. What made you better at an early age? Not in college. What made you better as a 14-year-old than most 14-year-olds?
I think just a little bit everything. Just a little.
Okay.
It was probably balanced across the board. Strength, speed, technique for my size. Again, I was small, and so part of the reason you get into wrestling also is because there's weight classes and you compete against people that are your size. So when you want to go play football, my dream was to be a linebacker. They didn't need any 4'11", 90-pound freshman linebackers.
You don't think Texas football is looking for a guy who's about 4'10",
No.
buck 5?
No, they didn't.
Medchill, you got to plug that hole. Be like, I tried. He's a
Yeah.
lot bigger than I am. All right, so then you went to Texas. You moved to the Woodlands, and did you wrestle on varsity as a freshman?
Mm-hmm.
Do we remember the record?
I was around in the upper 20s and 3 losses. 28
Okay.
and 3, call it.
All right. And then what weight were you then? Because I remember, again, I know you better than everybody else who's watching, is you got like huge, or you got big like real late in your high school career. So what are you wrestling at as a freshman?
103 pounds
That's just gross.
and small. And I didn't have to cut any weight. I was probably 95 pounds waking up, rolling out of bed in the morning, stepping on the scale.
Eating a Pop-Tart on the scale at weigh-in?
Yeah. And everybody else is trying to cut 5-10 pounds plus
Idiots.
to make weight.
And then your sophomore year, how did we do record-wise?
Sophomore year, similar. I was like 40 and 2. Took 5th in the state of Texas that year at
What weight?
112 pounds.
Just you got big. You just bulked up.
I probably put on 20 some pounds that year, but how little you notice, you know. When
Were we cutting weight at 112, or are you still eating Pop-Tarts on the scale?
No, I was cutting a little weight.
Okay. And then run me through junior year.
Junior year, I was undefeated. I tore my shoulder a couple tournaments before the state tournament. So I won the regional tournament, which qualifies you for the state at 130 pounds. So
And you were
probably 30
undefeated.
now.
You were like 30 and 0, and then you got hurt.
Yeah.
That's a crime. And then senior year.
Senior year, I had 2 shoulder surgeries in the meantime, so I had some rehab. I was like 19, 20 and 0, won the state title at 135 pounds.
Gosh. So you didn't lose a match after your sophomore year, but you only won 1 state title because you were just rehabbing and injured all the time?
Yeah.
Kind of impressive when you think about it. So then I want to talk about recruiting because, again, for those who don't know, Iowa wrestling is the Alabama of, Alabama football of wrestling. So how did you get to Iowa? If I have a pit stain, am I all right here? I just biked for a
Can't
little
see it.
while, it, like 13 miles on the bike. I don't. It's far. Okay.
Are you working out on the bike?
I just did it at the gym, but yeah, I just did a little exercise bike. You can play on your phone. I was working on your notes.
Good.
But so you got recruited, and how did you get recruited by Iowa? What other schools were in the mix, and things like that?
Yeah, back then, obviously, video wasn't as readily available as it is
Yeah.
now for recruits, but we were sending VHS tapes to colleges, and we were going to national tournaments to try to compete to get on somebody's radar. Iowa in particular, and so we
Okay.
had a little bit of a connection there, and he was able to kind of say, "Hey, watch out for this guy at this tournament," to the coach. And
Did
so
you win that tournament?
I didn't actually win that tournament. It was the national tournament, high school national tournament. I didn't win it, but did well, did fairly well. And then got a call from Iowa, and when you get a call from the guy that's on the poster on your wall,
Mm-hmm.
and if you ever listen to him speak, he enunciates everything. Tom Brand's his name, so Brad Medchill,
Oh,
and he'd talk to you for a few minutes, and you're a 17-year-old kid. Yeah, it was really motivating anyway, and it was almost
sure.
like you didn't even look at the other offers at that point. They're like, "You're going to let me on the team? Let's go."
and you were in a unique spot because you were going in there to wrestle at like a really light, unique weight because you were small, and
Yeah,
then
I
you
got
had like a growth
recruited.
spurt,
Yeah, I got recruited to wrestle 141 pounds.
which in college is tiny because those are grown men at 141.
Yeah, you're the third smallest of 10 weights
Okay.
at 141. After I finished my state tournament my senior year, I basically just started working out because it was the first time I was able to lift weights from my shoulder surgeries,
Mm-hmm.
and probably grew 4 or 5 inches, put on 30 pounds. I was showing up to these national tournaments having to cut weight to make 160 pounds, and it was hard. So
Yeah.
so they recruited me to wrestle 141, and I was walking in 175 pounds on the first day. Not with a lot of body fat at the time.
Right. Were they when you got there? Were they like, "Hey, what the hell happened to you? I thought you were small."
Yeah, I'd say they probably didn't. It's not like they cared, but they were probably like, okay, we probably just need to move some things around because wrestling again, 10 guys start. You got a roster of about 30.
That's how
And
many
so they're,
wrestlers there are, huh? 30.
yeah, 30,
Okay.
35. So you got 2 or 3 backups per weight that you're kind of running.
Understood. And then do the backups in college? They get to wrestle at like invitationals or like because you're not wrestling at a duel if you're not a starter, right?
Correct. Unless you happen to be starting that duel.
Okay.
They might have a guy. Wrestling's a sport. People get injured. Need to take some time off, and so you'll have an opportunity.
Gotcha. But if Iowa's going to wrestle Iowa State, it's 10 versus 10. Usually your best 10 because it's
Best
a
10 versus
rivalry.
best 10. Yep.
And there's no like, hey, the guys who are not playing can wrestle after and like just for like exhibitions, or is it just 10 on
Yeah,
10?
there's not a JV duel.
I didn't want to say JV, but I wasn't sure what else there could have been to
And that's
take
the levels that we talk about.
Yeah.
So going almost 120-5 in high school, doing well, and then you go to somewhere like Iowa and you just get your butt beat.
Right,
for
you're
a couple
practicing
months
with a
straight.
guy who went 145 and won in high
Right.
school, and he's already a two-time national champion in college.
Yeah, it's kind of like you where you're throwing and you're touching 94, and then you're the best in your state, and then you're all of a sudden you're up against the guy that's touching 99, 100.
Yeah, you hang out with the Dominican who's throwing like 94 cutters, and you're just like,
Yeah,
that's not normal.
yeah.
But
So
okay.
it happens.
And then I know a bunch of these stories because I love them. But I want to talk about a couple like crazy Iowa wrestling stories because I was in college. In college, you'd watch these wrestlers walk out of the wrestling room. Their shirts looked like they just got back from World War II. They're just bloody and they're ripped and there's holes everywhere and they're sweating. And they walk out and they like get water with their head down and then they walk back in. And they're just like, man, those guys look like they've gone through it. and you told me a couple stories. So I want you to tell the story about the bus trip after the Iowa State loss, and
Yep.
then maybe one of your other hardest or crazy practice stories or something. But yeah, tell the bus story. That's always my favorite.
Sure, sure. Your favorite, my least favorite
Favorite now.
experience. Yeah, I don't run long distance to this day because I just hate that experience, long distance running. But yeah, so Iowa had probably 30 duels. It was probably a span of 20 years straight where Iowa had beaten Iowa State in a duel. And anybody that's familiar with Iowa and Iowa sports, Iowa and Iowa State are their pro teams. They're, that's the pro team in the state. And so there's a lot of fans that get behind the sport. Almost every single duel this year, even this year, where Iowa's not number one, there's 15,000 fans that come and watch a duel meet. And so that's kind of the just kind of the way it works in Iowa. So you go against who that year I think they were very highly rated, but again, you have that streak to beat. We end up losing. There's a gas station about 10 miles from Iowa City, so on the way back from Ames, the bus stops in Iowa City, and everybody had to get off the bus, and they basically pointed to Carver, which was our training facility, and said, "Run home." And so it was just under 10 miles, I think, from the gas station, and this is winter in Iowa, and so it's not warm. But again, to our coach's credit, he ran it with us in his penny loafers or whatever dress shoe he was wearing, and that was it. That's the story in a nutshell. It was not a fun experience, but it was, hey, we're going to make this loss feel even worse than it already feels.
So he stops a bus when you're about 10 minutes from home, ready just to get off. You lost. You've been on a bus for 2 hours. And he stops 10 miles outside of town and just says, "Everybody get off. I'm tired of looking at you. Run it back into the arena, and we'll have your bags waiting for you."
Yeah. Yeah, bags will be there.
That's just brutal. Do you remember how cold it was? Was there any snow on the ground or anything?
I don't remember. I think so. It was probably November, mid-November in Iowa, and so winter's creeping in.
Yeah, 40 degrees, and no one's dressed appropriately.
Yeah. Well, everybody had their sweats. Everybody had their sweats and running shoes.
Oh, the amount of jock itch I'd have after a 9.5-mile jog.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did stuff like that. I wouldn't say all the time. That was kind of a unique one. That was purely kind of to really make sure everybody experienced that loss, to make sure you don't want to experience that again. But they would just occasionally load us up in vans for a daily workout and drive us to a random place and tell us to get out. And there's this river that winds through Iowa City.
Okay.
And yeah, probably 2 or 3 times we had to get out of the van, and they'd say, "Okay, you're running through the river on the way back to Carver." And so the river would be anywhere from 2 inches deep to 3 feet deep in some places. And, you're wearing a sweatshirt or whatever it was, and that stuff gets heavy when it's waterlogged. So you just you're just throwing a sweatshirt on the banks of this creek river as you're running, making your way back to
That's crazy. Did you ever go back and get the sweatshirts, or you just leave those for the dead?
I don't remember, honestly. I bet somebody drove back and got them all.
That's crazy.
But it's like when you start that kind of thing, like the first quarter mile is probably super fun, if I remember it correctly. It was like exciting. Okay. You felt like you were doing something unique, and then after that it was like, okay, this isn't fun anymore.
Sounds like most relationships. Just kidding. And then while you're there, we talked about you're always training and practicing against All-Americans and Olympians come back or whatever. Who in your time there was the most impressive person you saw? Whether you saw him across the mat or whether he was in your locker room, who was the most impressive person where, boom, just this guy pops in your head every single time?
There's one guy I never scored a point on, but he was an Olympian named Bill Zadek.
Bill Zadek. Bill Zadek. Okay.
Bill Zadek. He was
Iowa
just
guy?
a ferocious competitor. He was only there my freshman year of college, and he is now the head Olympic coach for Team USA. So, incredible guy. One guy that you wouldn't look at and think, oh no, I don't want to wrestle this guy, but guy that I wrestled with in college, besides Nick Hall, was a guy named Mark Perry. He was a 4-time national finalist, 2-time champ, and he was just a freak.
Did you wrestle him in practice?
Yeah, I wrestled him. Yeah, not all the time, but enough that the coaches would come in and tell you who you were lined up against for the practice match for that one, and then they would switch, and you'd have a second one. But they pulled me into the locker room, and they were like trying to get me all hyped for this one. They're like, all right, he's not ready for somebody to come at him hard, this and this. Because, again, he was a freak of nature, but he wasn't the hardest worker, but it was just because he was just so good. It's
right.
like he was just so much better than everybody. But yeah, they'd get me all hyped, and they'd send me out there, and, I'm ready to go. So I just blast double. I thought I just had him dead to rights, blast double right through him. And it's like I could see it in slow motion. He like reaches his arm right around my neck, secures it. As I'm driving, he's up in the air, and he gets 1 foot down to toe, and he like turns and it just wrenches me on my neck, onto my back, and the practice match was over. It was like 20-second practice match. I was going all out. He was probably just like warming up,
Oh, man.
He was just a freak.
And when those guys too, when you're in like a grapple, they're doing whatever they want to you because they're freaks of nature. So they'll take whatever you give them and just make it twice as good.
With somebody like him, he was
right.
special. There were plenty of All-Americans and national champs in the room that I could hang with. Some days I would have the better day than them. Some days they would have the better day than me. Obviously, they would probably get the majority of them. But at the end of the day, like somebody like Mark was just a freak.
And who was the guy you said? Bill Zadek? Was that the first guy?
Bill Zadek.
Bill Zadek. You said you never scored a point. So whatever you did, you couldn't put anything on him. He would just counter everything, or he was just so strong.
He was older. He was probably 30 when I was 20, maybe. And he was going on.
I thought this guy was like a classmate. You didn't tell me.
No, he was a little older, but
okay.
But yeah, I would just get calls. It's like you would get a call probably from the guy that he's like, I just need an easy day to work on a couple special moves I'm working on. Who do I need to call? I'm 18. I was probably 18 or 19 my freshman year. And so he'd call me up, and we'd go in, and he just knew I was going to fight as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And yeah, he probably gave me a concussion for all I know, because he hand fights real hard. He moves real hard. By hand fight, like you're able to basically almost punch with an open hand, and you're trying to move somebody out of position to be able to attack the legs or the body. And so I just start giving it back to him, hitting him pretty good, just like he was kind of taking it to me. And he like double hooks the back of my shoulders and steps in and like headbutts.
Oh.
And then like double legs me into the bleachers. I don't think the headbutt was intentional, but it was kind of just timing. And he was like, "Don't ever do that again." And it's like, sure enough, I get up and I run back to the middle, and then it's like the next paw went a little bit lighter.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I would have laid in the bleachers for an hour and a half and try to get some medical attention.
Yeah, but there were a lot of special guys. There were multiple-time national champs. Again, if you were gonna be wrestling in college, that's where you wanted to go, and when I had an opportunity, that's where I wanted to go as well.
Yeah, and then Penn State took over, like we said, about 10, 12 years ago, whatever. So Cal Sanderson is their head coach.
Yep.
And then Cale Sanderson. For everyone who doesn't know, Cale Sanderson was for a while the only undefeated wrestler, like throughout college history. He never lost a match in college. Is there anybody still like that, or is he still the only guy? Because I think like Bo Nickel lost once his freshman year or something.
Yes. Yeah.
There's
been a lot of special guys, but nobody that's gone undefeated. But there's been a few 4-time national champions since.
And then now he's at Penn State, and Penn State has turned it into the Iowa and now they're top dog for like the last decade, right?
Yeah, yeah. Cale Sanderson basically became the next Dan Gable. Cale Sanderson won 4 titles, went on, won the Olympics, got into coaching. Penn State offered him an incredible offer to go coach there, and yeah, and they've been lights out since. They have shifted the mentality around the sport. You know, if you listen to any of their team's interviews, it's a lot about fun, a lot about gratitude.
Oh,
It's a totally different mindset than kind of what was the early 2000s.
the military.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which everybody's had success at different levels with each kind of mentality, but theirs is definitely winning the day for sure.
Yeah, it's like Clemson football is Dabo Sweeney, who's rah fun. He's dancing in the locker room, and then Alabama has Nick Saban, where you don't want a hair out of place, or he's going to yell at you.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for it. Yep.
That's what I do, Brad. I like to wrestle with things mentally, not physically. So I'll tell a quick story about me and this idiot here. I'd probably only known you for like 3 or 4 months, and it was me, you, and DJ, and I was like, hey, I want to wrestle. And I'm probably 235. You're probably $170 at this time. We were just out of college. And I was like, I want to see if I can hang. I got 65 pounds on you. I can probably last for like 4 or 5 minutes. Thinking he's gonna know what he's doing, but I'm pretty strong and I'm way bigger. It's gonna be great. And then, I'll like maybe give him a noogie while I got him in a move. So none of this happened. We wrestled within 4 seconds. I'm in a pretzel and I can't move. And then I have to tap because I literally can't move. Not a part of I could maybe like move like a finger because everything else was stuck. He had me locked up. So I was like, okay. So you let me go because you're a nice guy. And I was like, all right, I wasn't ready for you to be that good. Now I'm ready. DJ, on your whistle. So we're going to start again. And now I'm feeling like, okay, well, now I know how good he is. I know what he's doing. Let's get after it. That first match probably lasted, if I had a stopwatch, 6 seconds. And then the second match probably lasted 4. And about 3 seconds into that 4-second match, you put your forearm and fist across my arm or my jaw, and my jaw popped. And then you decided to fold me up again where I couldn't move, and now I can't talk. And you let me go, and I was like, dude, my jaw popped. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, no, it's fine. The next 45 mornings in a row, when I would go to sleep, I'd wake up and my jaw was locked. And I'd have to like pop it and get it back open. And I'm like, this is my reality for the next 80 years of my life. I'm going to have to open my mouth from locked jaw. And luckily it kind of went away. But to this day, if I'm eating with someone, it could be my girlfriend, it could be a guy or whatever, and it's a quiet environment, my jaw makes a noise every time I chew, thanks to this guy here. In the 11 seconds we had 2 wrestling matches in.
I hate to hear that.
Oh.
I've never heard of a jaw injury from anybody either.
And you wouldn't think with this jaw, you're thinking stone.
Yeah, look at that jaw structure.
Steel, marble. I guess I have a brittle jaw. I did watch a TikTok, though, where this chiropractor guy adjusted someone's jaw that was clicking. I haven't gone that route yet, but it's gotten better.
For?
It's gotten better. Well, I like telling the story. They're like, what? Your jaw's making...
He doesn't get the jaw fixed just as a setup.
Yeah, I'm eating cereal, and the person's like, your jaw's making a noise. Wrestled at Iowa, and I just keep going. And then they want to ask the story, and I just leave. I don't give them any context.
Just get it fixed, and then crack your knuckles while you're chewing, and then you could still tell the story.
That's true. Or I just chew while I'm acting like I'm cracking my back.
Yeah.
I remember I'd only known you for like 2 weeks, and I watched you climb a tree. And to this day, it's the most impressive feat. So for anyone who's picturing this, there was like an old oak tree, and Brad says to me, and again, I don't know him very well, I just think he's an idiot. He goes, that's a great tree to climb. And I look at it, the first branch is like 8 feet up. A great tree to climb, I'm thinking there's a step branch, and you get up there, maybe a pine tree where there's 100 of them. This tree, I didn't think a human could climb it. And I go, you can't climb that tree. He goes, what are you talking about? It's perfect. It's a great tree. I go, I don't even think you can get in that tree. And I shit you not, within 15 seconds, you were 60 feet up into this oak tree. And in my life, I was like, he's a monkey. I almost wish that was before iPhones. If I had that on film, million views. I've never seen someone climb a tree that fast. I would be, in the same amount of time, I'd be hanging on the first blimb with my legs scraping the sides, trying to get him up and over. Oh, it was impressive. Do you remember that at all, or is that like just another tree climbing day to you?
The way you tell the story, it sounds like I went out and climbed trees for fun, and I was looking for a setup just to be able to climb a tree. It's quite rare that I climb a tree. The funny thing is, about 2 weeks ago, my son and I got a football caught in a tree down at the plaza down the way, and
Yes.
I scaled that thing pretty quick to get that
I was
ball
going to say,
out.
tell me you got in there.
I did.
Dude,
Almost 40, and we're still doing it.
I see trees. I'll be on a hike, or I'll be walking down the street and be like, oh, Medchill would just hammer that tree. I just say it in my head because no one knows what I'm talking about. But that was impressive.
Well, let's flip that on you then for a second, because you're a unique individual. Like, the funniest person I know, always down for fun. If there's not anything fun going on, you create fun. So let's get into some of the fans sent me some requests of questions to ask you.
Oh, okay, it's good.
And so, how do you think? What do you think the origin story for Nick Hall is? How did you become that way?
At about 10, I started wrestling.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's a good question. My dad was always real strict, and my mom was always happy-go-lucky. And then my sister is a little bit like a warrior, and she kind of like tries to plan everything. My brother's like my dad. He's real business-oriented. And I was just kind of always like whatever. It'll all work out. Mm-hmm. And my dad couldn't stand it early on, but my mom didn't care because she's just happy-go-lucky. So my dad would always be like, well, why didn't you do this and this and this and this? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, it kind of worked out. And I'm always find the fun in everything, whatever it might be, or find something and make it fun. So, like, I'll be sitting there if we're hanging out with the boys, and I'll just come up with random things. Like, who would you rather do this? Or what with this? Or what would you do if I gave you $50 right now? I don't know. I don't like... I think all these thoughts, and they just come to me, and then I say them. Mm-hmm. So, but my whole life is like, choose the path of happiness over the path of, I don't know, the unknown or whatever. And I don't know how it started, but it's
automatic.
Always been that way. Yeah, it really is.
You don't have to think about it.
No, and it's not an
amazing.
Act. Like, if you literally put me in a jail cell, I'm going to try and figure out some game to make of like, I bet there's 77 bars on that. And then I'll like, of the jail cell, I'm like, 74. I'm like, I still got it. And like, I'll have fun with myself in a jail cell. I've never been in one, but this podcast keeps going the way it is. But no, it's a good question. I don't know what the origin is. I would just say I knew always right and wrong for my dad, and he was strict, but I also knew that I could kind of do whatever I want with my mom and have fun with it. And I think it's just kind of a blend of the two. So, but I don't really I just love sports, and then I love like making things fun, like whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, people probably don't know unless they've been following you for a long time, but you were TikTok before TikTok existed.
Ooh, the car dancer.
Do you remember the car dancer?
I still have them on my YouTube, but I have them all private so no one can see them.
Oh, you gotta re-release them.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I used to make car dances in my car called the Car Dancer, and I would do like a 1.5-minute long clips, and I would put them out there. I had the Native American, the Michael Jackson, the nosebleed, where I would just dance like that. There's like 9 of them, so those will never come back out.
And in our early mid-20s, like most young men needed a little bit of alcohol to be able to get the confidence to be able to get out and dance or do whatever it was. Like you needed a sip of Diet Coke and you were already in the game.
Oh yeah, just give me that DC and
you could cut it up.
I still enjoy a good dance. Haven't danced in a while, but I enjoy it. But yeah,
that's good.
Those are the days. Car dancer in an apartment in the Woodlands.
Yep. And then Yummy Bro. You launched Yummy Bro.
Yep, had a blog before blogging was cool. It was like embarrassing to tell somebody you had a blog.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's Yummy Bro? You're like, it's a killer website. Like, is it a blog? You're like, no,
Yeah.
no blog. It's a blog. It's pretty much a blog. But all right, so some crypto talk. We'll go quickly on this. But you're big into crypto. Are you still big into XRP?
Still big.
Okay.
By big, I haven't traded a dime of anything for 3 years.
I got into
It's just
XRP because of your and DJ's.
DJ
sweet
loves to
intelligence.
sell. DJ's
Yeah.
a good salesman.
Yeah, DJ's got me into a stock called KMI when I first invested. I had $6,000. I lost 3 of it. Thanks, Deej. And then I got into XRP when it was $1. I sold it at 50 cents after a year and a half. That was nice. What's your cost ratio? So what's your average cost of XRP? And when do you think it's going to blow up? Because I was told after a lawsuit like 18 months ago that in 3 months it's over. Then in 3 more
No.
months. So are we still in that lawsuit? And then when's it going to
Those
blow up?
lawsuits they just go on forever.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still going. It's still going. So my cost basis is probably like 48 cents. It's probably at like 65 cents now.
Okay. When are we selling?
We're selling at multiple dollars.
Okay, so if it's $1.50, you're just excited, but $3 you're selling.
Maybe 5.
Okay.
Maybe 5 I'll
right.
start selling.
We won't make you disclose any numbers, but if it's $5 and you sell, is that a pretty little penny? We buying a house with that, or are we like, is that like go on a trip kind of money?
It's probably you can buy maybe half of a house.
He's buying a house. So are we? Should we tell people out there to buy XRP? Are you pretty confident? Or are you just hoping right now? Is it a fingers crossed, or is it a smart play?
I'm invested because I'm in long-term cap gains now, and so I might as well just sit until it does something.
If anyone's
That's where
curious,
I'm
the
at.
answer is fingers crossed. Just a nice way of putting it.
If you wanna put more of the experts say to follow the developer activity. So the more people that are developing products and services on different crypto chains, those are the ones to invest in the most. And XRP is not in probably the top 10 of that.
Okay. Which leads me into my next thing, which has nothing to do with crypto. Are you a pickleballer? You got the look.
I got the pickleball look.
Yeah.
So I had a neighbor, we moved probably 8 months ago, but I had a neighbor 2 doors down that he had a full pickleball court in his backyard. And he'd invite me over. Usually it was Saturdays or Sundays. He would come knocking on the door and say, hey, we're a man short, come on over. And so I've played a little bit of pickleball.
It's a good time.
I feel like you would win the world championships at pickleball because it's like the perfect mixture between ping pong and tennis without the need for kind of running all over the place like tennis.
He basically just told you I wasn't very fast. But I do agree. I've only played.
I said you're a ping pong phenom is part of it.
Yeah, that's not true. But my buddy Judd's got a place in Utah, and they got a pickleball court in their backyard, and now he's got like this pole barn that's got one inside. And whenever I visit, which I try and go every year, like they're Mormon, and they're just all about like having fun games and stuff like that. So it'll be like 9 o'clock at night, and he'll say, "Hey, you want to play pickleball tonight?" I was like, "Sure." And within 10 minutes, he's got 2 other dudes over there, and we're just ripping pickleball. So I always have a blast, but I don't play enough. It's one thing I want to kind of get into a little more because you could play for an hour and a half and sweat a little bit, but if you play an hour and a half of tennis, I'm going through 4 T-shirts.
Right.
So it is a good time type stuff.
Does it make you miss coaching?
No, I like coaching. Coaching baseball is the worst of all the sports. I like coaching, and I like baseball. But, dude, like right now, it's pouring rain. I don't know if you can hear it. It's pouring rain. It's baseball season. So you can't play. Great. Now you got to go practice baseball in a small gym. Well, baseball is an outdoor sport of, 2 acres, and we're doing it in a small gym. That's fine. Tomorrow, the field's going to be too wet. So we got to practice in a small gym again, but I have to go to the field to see how wet it is, and I got to rake it and drag it and get rid of the water and do all this stuff. So then we play again the next day, and then I got to get there 2 hours early, and I'm doing all this, and I'm getting it ready to play like a 2-hour game. And it's like all of that just to play one game, and you're a lot of that. I do like how there's a lot of games, but Basketball. If we're practicing today from 2 to 4, you get there, court's in great shape, you get the basketballs, you have your practice. Your baseball practices are twice as long because at the end of every practice, you're raking the field, getting it put to sleep, you're doing all this stuff where it just gets really annoying. It's really weather-based. So I don't miss it. And then baseball's a failure sport. So a prime example, if I'm wrestling you in high school, you win every match. Awesome, great. Baseball, your team gets 8 hits in a game. You made 27 outs, all of these things. So the good kid went 2 for 4. The other 6 kids went 0 for 3, and they're pouting and they're not happy. And then the other kid who went 2 for 4 isn't happy in 2 of his at bats. And it's like baseball is not basketball, where probably the same as wrestling. I can't sub a guy in, sub a guy out, sub a guy in. I'm playing my starters, and those are my guys. I can pinch run, I can maybe pinch hit, I can bring in a pitcher, but not everybody's playing. So you get 12, 13 unhappy kids on a bench. You get the 2 kids that are happy to be there. The other 10 think they're better than the starters. So you're constantly juggling that. But if you're in football and you have 45 kids, great. 11 on offense, 11 on defense, 8 or so on each special teams. I can sub a guy in here for a play. Baseball, I can't. You only get 4 at bats. I can't give you, if you're my best player and little Timmy blows, I can't give little Timmy your at bat. Like, I'm going to sub in Timmy for my best player? No, I'm leaving you out there. You only get 4 at bats. I don't want to take those away. So the only time they get him is at the end of the game, and then they feel slighted. Then their parents kind of don't understand. You're like, well, come to a practice. Little Timmy is awful. And in 3 swings, you'll think Brad's better. But so again, it's a juggling match where I do like coaching. I do enjoy. I love the relationships. Still friends and still connect with a bunch of my players. And there's something about the age of boys or men from like 15 to 18. I think it's like the coolest age of dudes. You're no longer a kid. You're not really an adult. You're like, you're learning about life. You're learning about girls. You're waiting for college. You have your license. You think going to Chipotle is cool. It's like, I'm almost like an 18-year-old where, I don't drink. I don't do any drugs. I love going to Chipotle. So like the guys are after practice like, Coach, we're going to Chipotle. I'm like, bet your ass I'm going. Out of the way. I'm going first. But so I do miss that stuff. It's just a long season. You get paid $5,000, $4,000 after taxes to coach for 3 straight months. It's like it's $1 an hour kind of thing. So you do it because you love it, and you do love it. But the worst part too, I'll tell you, is indoor practices when you're coaching high school baseball. Is practice indoor. Okay, great. Well, I'm not at the school. I'd have to go to the school, load all of the buckets of baseballs, equipment, all the stuff in my truck, drive it to the facility that we're practicing at, because it usually was at a little place like a mile away, practice, put it all back in my truck in case that it's going to rain tomorrow. We're back there, but if not, so I was constantly, my truck was full, doing all this stuff again for a small practice, where if you had a big facility or whatever, it'd be totally different. Coaching college baseball, totally different. But
yeah, so you didn't love the management of it, but you loved the coaching, the actual coaching.
Like DJ and I talked about this because he was my assistant coach. Assistant coach is the best job ever. You show up 5 minutes before practice starts. You reach over, the coach hands you a practice plan. You're like, cool, I'll do this drill. Okay, cool. And then the practice leaves, and you're like, hey, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow. And you walk out. It's like, that's fun.
And once your kids are old enough and you're in youth sports, do the same thing.
Yes.
I am happy to be the assistant coach of every team.
Exactly. Yeah. Sign me up for that, but I don't want to be making practice plans, scheduling things, scheduling games, trips. And at my school, too, we had to drive. We had short buses. Our school owned 4 short buses. So every road game, me and then my Uncle Rob, who's my assistant, we would drive these buses to the games. So now I'm driving in Chicago traffic to go to the city to play a game. I'm driving a bus. I'm like, what is going on here? Can we get a bus driver?
Yeah, you're doing a lot of jobs, not just coaching. So you don't need to relaunch the furniture business?
Oh, I should talk about that. No, it is. For those.
How did that start, by the way? What is the start of the Nick Hall furniture business? The origin story.
So, again, for people who don't know, I flipped couches for the better part of 5 years, maybe 6. Buying them on Craigslist. What's that?
And theater seats.
Oh, theater seats were my bread and butter.
Yeah.
It started with I was living in a house with no furniture other than my main family room, and it was a 4-person or 4-bedroom house. So I had nothing in my living room, nothing in my dining room. So I went on Craigslist. And I was like, I'm gonna get some couches so I don't look like a hobo. And they were leather couch, leather love seat, $150. So I said, hey, Craigslist before Facebook Marketplace. I said, hey, would you do $100 if I brought a buddy and I bought him tonight? Guy's like, sure. So I grabbed Matt Lithberg. We drove to the city, picked him up. It was like downtown. Drove an hour, picked him up, drove back, set him there. And then a couple days later, I was like, my friends were over. I was like, hey, what do you guys think I spent on these? They're like, I don't know, $500. One said 600. I was like, $100. They're like, oh, great. A couple days go by, and I'm like, well, if my idiot friends think I spent $500, maybe somebody would want to buy them. Out of the blue, was just bored, took pictures of them, made them like real nice, put them online for $550, back on Craigslist. A couple days later, guy said, hey, I'll give you 500. I said, sounds great. Showed up, picked him up. It was like a Russian guy. Drove away, and I'm looking at him at the little window of on the side of my door as he's driving away with my money, and I go, $100 I paid for, $400 profit. I was like, that's crazy. I wonder if I can do it again. Did it again like 2 weeks later. Set of couches, couch, love seat, recliner. Guy won like $400. I offered him $200. He said no. I said okay. A couple days later, he writes me back, says, I'm redoing my floors. They're yours if you want them. Called one of my players, JP Clifford, if you're watching. He went with me to help pick him up at a house in Batavia where he lived. Loaded him up, back to my house, unloaded him, sold him for like $600. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just made $900 in the month of January. I go, if I can do this every month, that's like 10 grand. Made 900. Next month I made like 1,500. Next month I made like 2 grand. Next month I made 2,400. And then I was like, I always wanted to get into real estate. Now's the time. So I just did furniture flipping and real estate for my first year. And I did it all the way up until about 2 years ago. Now the market is flooded with people like that. It got viral on TikTok and YouTube, and you could search hard and probably find one couch a month if you wanted to. But back then I was flipping 6, 7, 8, 9 couches a month, making 2-3 grand cash. But the market's dried up. There's too many people doing it. They have storage units. They're just cornering the market. But
That's so good though. But again, another thing before your time.
I am before my time. My problem is
Yeah.
I find something else and I go that avenue and I just keep it rolling. I enjoy doing stuff that nobody else is doing. Like podcasts. I don't think there's a single podcast out there right now.
Yeah.
This is the first one.
Listen to any other podcasts?
Daniel
What
Todd,
entertainment do you consume?
anything and everything football. Love football. Got a draft.
College and pro.
College and pro, a lot more pro now. Anything football, I like Daniel Tosh. He's got a podcast. His is great. I like a lot of stuff that Portnoy does. His pizza reviews, his podcast, any kind of content he puts out. That's probably about it for stuff that I kind of always listen to. I love clips. I'm a diehard clip guy. So like Joe Rogan, like I'll watch his 8-minute clips of something.
Yeah.
I love motivational clips. I'm a little ADD, so I like the smaller ones. But like Tosh, I watch his whole show every time. Most of the Portnoy stuff, I'll watch his if it's a 25, 40-minute show. But I'm a big clip guy. I love clips.
Can I tell you something funny? Pro football?
Sure.
So you, me, and DJ used to go out like Buffalo Wild Wings, dinner. You would come up with trivia night, and of course you would have the trivia questions already.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm terrible at sports trivia, like terrible. And you guys you'd be like, okay, DJ, can you over or under 20 head NFL coaches? And he's like, yeah, no problem. He goes, all right, name them. And then you go through it, and they're like, Brad, over or under 2.
Yeah.
And you guys would bet if I could get over or under 2. But because of that, like I'm like, okay, what's Nick going to get me on? And so I'm like jotting notes of coaches I had prepped just in case you were going to put me on the spot for my terrible sports trivia. I was going to have a couple up my sleeve.
Yeah, Brad would be the guy who'd be like, all right, home run leaders for last season in 2008, and he's like, "Ooh, Barry Bonds." I'm like, "Barry Bonds retired."
Frank Thomas.
I'm like, "They both retired 11 years ago, Brad."
Yeah.
But yeah, sports trivia not your thing, but always had incredible hair. Always much smarter than us. Had a better vocabulary. I only know half the words you used to say. So everyone has their thing. Not knowing how many stolen bases a guy has is not really of the essence.
Yep.
Okay, Brad, Titanic, you know the drill. Huge fan of the
Yep.
podcast.
Huge
I'm going to
fan.
ask you a bunch of questions. You got a couple seconds to think about it, and you give me your answers. So you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. If you could only go to one concert in the next 5 years, who would it be?
Lumineers.
Oh. Do you pee in
What
the
would you
pool?
pick?
I went to Morgan Wallen's last year. I'm a big Morgan Wallen fan.
Okay.
I only like going to concerts if I like the people. Like if you gave me free tickets to somebody that's just okay, I don't want it. Not a diehard concert guy. Do you pee in the pool
Yes.
every single time you swim, or the majority of time you swim?
Enough to where I don't even think about it.
Correct. As long as no one's within 4 feet,
Right.
yeah, you let it go.
Yeah.
Do you pee in the shower?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. I've come across people who don't do either. And I think they're idiots.
Yeah, I think they're lying.
That's actually a good point. They're lying idiots.
Yeah.
See right through them. Better free appetizer. If you go to Texas Roadhouse, you get the rolls with the cinnamon butter. Or
Yeah.
you go to a really good Mexican restaurant and you get the chips and salsa. They're both free. Which one's
Yeah.
better?
Huge chips and salsa fan, and so I'd probably, as far as volume, I consume more chips and salsa. But if you're in for a Texas Roadhouse, those rolls are money.
Since you're an Iowa guy, have you been watching Caitlin Clark in the Iowa women's hoops?
I've been catching the clips on Twitter. Yep.
Yep, speaking of clips. I watched the second half of the game yesterday. First time in U.S. history I've watched women play basketball.
That's why she's so valuable.
It's
That's why
crazy.
she's so valuable. She's bringing people like you that have never watched a women's basketball game in to watch a whole half.
I bet $110 on women's hoops.
Yeah.
I won.
There you go.
Minus 2.5.
And she just nails. She doesn't care where she is on the court, and she'll just launch it.
She was the only player enjoyable to watch. The rest of the other 9 players on the court made me want to throw up. And it's just not good basketball. She is. But there's a lot of falling over. They airball more shots than they should. The passes get defended a lot. It's just not a crisp game that I like. But
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark in girls' defense was very fun to watch. But like you said,
Yeah.
she pulls up from everywhere. And yeah, she's legit. What is Brad Medchill's bedtime since you have 4 kids?
4 kids. They're at different ages, so 2 middle school, 2 early elementary. So we're trying to get 8:30, 10, and we're getting in bed probably 10 o'clock.
You pull into a parking lot. Are you looking for the absolute best possible spot, or are you parking far back?
First available, I'll walk.
I like
I'll
it.
take the exercise.
What are you driving these days?
GMC Sierra.
Oh, big rig.
What do you got?
I got a Ford F-150, my 13th one. I just keep
You
getting
do
every
love those
couple years.
Fords.
Nothing runs like a Ford. That's not their slogan. Built Ford tough.
Built Ford tough.
How do you take your coffee?
I don't take it at all. I don't drink coffee
Really?
really at all. Maybe a couple times a year I'll have a cappuccino. A latte, actually.
Okay, now we're back in. Cappuccino didn't count. Latte counts.
Yep.
Favorite McDonald's breakfast menu item?
Sausage McMuffin.
Ooh. Very good. Very
The
good.
kids love the big breakfast with hotcakes.
Okay. If someone comes
What
to
do you
Dallas,
go with? What do you go? You're with the McGriddle, right?
so McGriddle's when I thought calories didn't count, and then I realized they
Yeah.
do. I looked in the
Sometimes,
mirror
yeah,
one
they
day.
do if you count them.
They do. Now I go sausage egg McMuffin, same kind of thing, and then I throw away as much of the bread as I can with still getting bread in the bite. That's heaven. So those are just killer. But McGriddles,
I don't think I've ever tried the McGriddle though. But watching your show, I'm like, maybe I got to try one.
McGriddles are, like seriously, if calories didn't count, I'd probably have 2 every morning and would never change. They're just so good.
What do you think about? Have you tried any Chick-fil-A chicken biscuits?
Chick-fil-A is very good. Their biscuits are awesome. But McDonald's biscuits are actually pretty good. But yes, not a Chick-fil-A close to me. It's like 15, 20 minutes away.
Okay.
But I'm also a stockholder, big shareholder in McDonald's, so I gotta.
I hope you are. I hope you are because I was trying to think of what the math could be on how much you've spent with McDonald's in your lifetime.
It's gross, dude.
Do you think you're over 6 figures?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's embarrassing. I'll pull into McDonald's sometimes, like in the evening, to get a pop, and I'm like, I'm just getting a pop, and they'll be like, this is my 3rd time at a McDonald's today. And what makes it even grosser is it's a 3rd different McDonald's that I went to.
But do you go to the different one because you don't want to be recognized?
Oh, I hate to say this publicly. I'm recognized at like 4 different McDonald's currently.
But I ask because we're all creatures of habit, right? So we all have our routine spots that we'll hit. Like once they know me by name, no matter what the restaurant is, I'm like, shoot, I probably have to try the other one on the other side of the town just so I don't feel like I'm that guy.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, oh, they know me there? That's my spot.
Yeah.
So there's one now, the one I go to close by my house. Her name's Jocelyn. She's the drive-through girl. I told her she needs to come on the podcast. So if Jocelyn, if you're ever watching, get on here. I want to interview. I want to have a drive-through worker on. I think it'd be a blast. But she's the sweetest. So every time I'll literally go in, and I don't know if you've gone lately, if you have the code on your app, and there's all like discounts and stuff. So they're like, oh, 99-cent coffee. So I'll be like, oh, what's your code? I'll be like 9624. And she'd be like, hi, Nick, you want your coffee? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, yes, I sure do. So
Yeah, that's the best.
Oh, and then I drive by the window, and I'm like, you're the best. So maybe she'll come on sometime. But yeah, I go far too often. But I try and be healthy as often as I go. So if I get 2 double cheeseburgers, I throw away the buns, or I get the breakfast thing, I throw away the muffins. That way I can keep going there, and I don't look like a total waste of space. I can be kind of a waste of space.
Yeah.
It's,
have they reached out to you yet for a sponsorship of the pod?
No. I need more subscribers, but they're my first call. I might give them a fake subscription, like where I say this is brought to you by McDonald's, but then they'll probably have an attorney shoot me.
So they were one of my first big accounts that I landed when I was first getting into sales. And my daughter was 3 weeks old at the time. And so I took a picture of her with the little Happy Meal, the little fries.
Sure do.
She was laying on the bed with the little fries. And I sent it to my customer that just signed the deal. And they sent it back with their team copied in and said, I'm loving it. As a reply.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I just realized, Medchill, we're an hour and 16 minutes in, and I didn't ask one question about your job, which is like half the podcast. Yeah. I want to learn about people's jobs. And we're an hour and 16 minutes in, and you brought up Lennox, and I'm like, I didn't ask a single goddamn question about air conditioning, HVAC, sales. Oh, we're gonna have to have 2 podcasts here, Brad.
Hey, if the fans want it.
That's embarrassing. Literally, we're 30 minutes longer than any podcast I've done, and I didn't ask
you can clip it in later
about your job. Which is the whole point of this. Like, I learn about people's jobs and what they're doing and how they got there. We just talked about you breaking my jaw for an hour and a half.
Hey,
unbelievable. Okay, so usually I ask people if they get into a ring with like a 100-pound wolf to the death, but you're a wrestler, so yeah. I gotta juice it up here, Brad.
Okay.
So you're in a cage match, all right? You have a 200-pound lion. Most lions are like 400, I think. We'll say an average male lion is 300 pounds. I have no idea. You're with an almost male lion at 200 pounds. No tools. Are you able to kill that thing?
No tools?
No, it's just you and a lion. You and an 18-month-old male lion. He's got 11 confirmed zebra kills.
I think I have a fighter's chance, but an outside chance. So it's I think
Who's got the 51%? You or the Lion?
The Lion for sure. The Lion probably, yeah, they're get 70-30 Lion.
Okay. But there's a chance you walk out of there with just dragging that thing behind you?
There's a chance I'm just going to sneak around behind it and choke that thing out.
Oh, is that what you're going to go for? Just the straight choke out?
I don't have any tools. I don't have any claws. What else are you going to do? You got to get behind that thing. You got to wrap its legs up, and you got to choke it.
I actually like your odds now that you start talking about it. I think you're 60-40.
Yeah. You got to avoid the front paw. You got to duck that and get to the neck.
It's kind of like that guy who threw you into the bleachers.
Yeah, right.
All right. How many pillows do you sleep with? And before you answer, my favorite answer of all time is Cole. A couple episodes ago, he goes, 1 pillow, and I like to put it right here.
Yeah.
You like the 1 pillow behind your head. That's impressive.
Yeah. So there's probably like 8 pillows on my bed. Ooh. If we'll sit up and watch a show, you got nice recline, nice comfort. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to actually going to sleep, yeah, you're down to 1.
Okay.
Now you have to, otherwise you're going to start getting a curvature to your back.
Understood. I usually ask people what actor they would like to play them in a movie, but because you look like Bradley Cooper, this doesn't really go very well for you. So we're just going to assume your answer is Bradley Cooper. And then you've also got.
I remember back in the day, I used to get a different actor all the time. People would come up, but I think I just have that familiar face thing. But yeah, it was Bradley Cooper or Christian Bale. Or
oh yeah, Christian Bale whoever. Too. I do remember that. You also look a little bit like Lionel Messi.
Lionel Messi. I went to Mexico, and I had people that straight up thought I was Lionel Messi. They were hammered, obviously, but
you're like his exact build. The guy's like 5'9", $170, shredded, same hair. He's tattooed out now, but I definitely could see it for sure. The problem is when they start talking to you in Spanish, and you go, no, I don't know what you're saying, but no.
No entiendo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, last question. Because you have a ton of kids, is it better to do a road trip because it's cheaper, or is it better to fly somewhere because it's less of a headache? What's better as a family man?
What are you trying to do? Just any vacation?
Let's say, I don't know, if you guys go to Florida, is it better to fly the family to Florida or to drive the 14 hours to Florida?
Let's say we've been to Florida twice. We drove once, and then we flew.
How about that?
We're going again, and we're flying. Unless you're trying to see different sites on the way to wherever you're going, then flying's the way to go.
Okay.
Also, because I don't have 2 weeks just straight that I want to just take off work, because work's going to be there when you get back. So if you drive, you kind of add days to your trip.
Yeah, that brings me to the next segue. How's work going?
Yeah.
Talk about the HVAC world. That's good, and that wraps our show up. I literally can't believe we didn't talk one. I had all these questions about HVAC and sales and working your way up the ladder and air conditioning, and we didn't get to any of them, Brad. And we're 80 minutes into this gosh dang show, so we're gonna have, if you want, we're gonna have to have you back on at some point so we can actually discuss your job, which is the whole point of this podcast, is to learn more about people.
All right. If it gets any views at all, then I'll come back.
Okay. And before I can let you go, I need you to stand up out of your chair, and I need you to get into a wrestling position. And that's the picture I want everyone to see before we end it. There it is. Ooh, oh! All right, Brad. You are the man. Thank you for coming on, buddy, and it was great hanging out with you.
Thanks, brother. Good to see you.
You're the best.
Yesterday was special in every way. It was my birthday. Now on to the Masters. My picks are these 5. At least 3 of them will finish in the top 5. Vigala, Hovland, McIlroy, Finau and Scheffler. The only thing holding Scheffler back is his wife.